You said shortly. As a joke. As a Lee joke.
I know.
Worse than a dad joke. All right.
I have no bad jokes.
That sounds like it could be a lesson. There are no bad jokes. There are only bad jokers. All right. Today I'm going to read lesson 80. I'm going to let Dad read the notes. I'm going to turn the volume of the music down a little bit, get us in our mood. Today is lesson 80. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. It's amazing how little problems will bother you when you realize they've already been solved. All right, almost there. There we go. Lesson 80. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Darn it. It's like I restarted everything and it all went away. All right, one last thing here. There we go. Now all my ducks are in a row. If you're willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. Your one central problem has been answered, and you have no other. Therefore, you must be at peace. Salvation thus depends on recognizing this one problem and understanding that it has been solved. One problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact, and you are ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for your salvation. Your only problem has been solved. Repeat this over and over to yourself today with gratitude and conviction. You have recognized your only problem, opening the way for the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer. You have laid deception aside and seen the light of truth. You've accepted salvation for yourself by bringing the problem to the answer. And you can recognize the answer because the problem has been identified. You are entitled to peace today. A problem which has been resolved cannot trouble you. Only be certain that you do not forget that all your problems are the same. Their many forms will not deceive you while you remember this. One problem, one solution. Accept the peace this simple statement brings. In our longer practice periods today, we will claim the peace that must be ours when the problem and the answer have been brought together. The problem must have gone because God's answer cannot fail. Having recognized one, we have recognized the other. The solution is inherent in the problem. You are answered and have accepted the answer. You are saved. Now let the peace that your acceptance brings be given you. Close your eyes and receive your reward. Recognize that your problems have been solved. Recognize that you are out of conflict, free, and at peace. Above all, remember that you have one problem and that the problem has one solution. It is in this that the simplicity of salvation lies. It is because of this that it is guaranteed to work. Assure yourself often today that your problems have been solved. Repeat the idea with deep conviction as frequently as possible, and be particularly careful to remember to apply the idea for today to any specific problems that may arise. Say quickly, let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let us be determined not to collect grievances today. Let us be determined to be free of problems that don't exist. This means is simple honesty. Don't deceive yourself about what the problem is. And you must recognize that it has been solved. Notes are right here in front of you when you're ready.
I was going to ask you, Lee, if you would read that last paragraph again. Oh, I see. You got the notes here already. Okay.
Yeah, I can do it.
You
I got
had
it right here. Let us
said,
be
you said
determined.
this means is, oh, go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
I'll do it any way you want. You want your...
It's the means is, yeah, finish. You're finished. It's okay. It said the means is simple honesty. You said this means is simple honesty, which of course didn't make any sense. It's
Tried to
okay.
read it right.
It's not a big deal at all. Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, if you'll give me the notes now, I'll be ready to see that problem was solved.
So easy.
Okay. I know.
So blurry. Okay. A
Blurry.
Course in Miracles workbook
Okay,
for
the
dummies. Notes to lesson 80.
Okay, let me recognize that my problems have been solved. Lesson 80 is let me recognize that my problems have been solved. This is a follow-up to yesterday's lesson that asked you to recognize the problem so that it could be solved. Yesterday's lesson said that we have only one problem, and that is our belief in separation. When you recognize what the real problem is, you can seek a solution for the real problem. But without that identification, you wander aimlessly about with no direction or purpose. You attempt to bandage over the effects of the problem rather than addressing the true cause. When we realize that our grievances are maintaining the problem, we realize that we need to stop holding those grievances. Yet our grievances stem from our erroneous belief about our world and who we really are. When we recognize that we have only one problem, it becomes obvious that there is only one solution that will work. If there is only one problem and one solution, pursuing different paths that fail to address or recognize the real problem is a waste of time, since they cannot work or do any good. Since your ego does not recognize what your happiness is, your ego's plans for your happiness are not a viable solution. Instead, your egos, I'll go back again, Lee, I didn't get the last part there.
Sorry, Dad. Thought I
That's
had that
no,
timing right.
no problem.
The plans are the problem, man.
There are no problems. Instead, your ego's plans are the problem. Okay, that's what the book says. I'll read it. Okay, instead, your ego's plans are the problem. Although we stated that our problem is separation, we need to clarify what that problem really is. The problem is not our participation in the game of separation. The problem is that we forgot it is a fantasy. We forget to laugh and made the game real without our own mind's imagination. We made fear into our provisional reality and heard the voice for that fear. Our mind now appears to be split with two possible voices to be heard. Oi, the voice for fear and the voice for love. One voice represents the false and is the problem. The other voice represents the truth and is the solution. We have forgotten that time and space is merely a game board to allow inquisitive, individuated aspects of the one self to demonstrate, know, and be that one self. When we forgot, we transformed the exciting and fun journey of reawakening into a struggle to recover the paradise we thought we had lost. We came here to be, know, and demonstrate the individuated aspects of love in form. When we mistook the game board for our reality, the journey became a fearful struggle to earn back our divine inheritance that we really believed we had lost. Rather than simply explore the various aspects of being love in form in a safe environment, our ego believed we were separate from our source, had something to fear, and that love had to be earned if we were to get our needs met. We had forgotten who we truly are. Our belief that we could be something we are not is really the problem of separation. Being an indivisible, individuated aspect of the one self, we slipped into fear, forgot the true purpose of the game, and made the false evidence that appeared as our imagination's game board into our provisional reality. False evidence. The game board was designed so that the child could learn, grow, and have fun while exploring the various aspects of itself in perfect safety. The game board is incapable of changing the truth of who we are. A wise parent allows their children to go to school. The purpose of the school is to provide a good education in a safe environment so that the child can realize their true potential and be all that it is capable of being as an adult. Children start off in kindergarten and progress as they continue to hone their skills and transform potential talent into real usable skills. Children should not feel guilty about being in school or not being able to demonstrate all their skills that they will eventually develop and possess when they graduate. It's all right to be in elementary school, since we're all guaranteed to graduate. You are exactly where you need to be in the journey of rediscovery. Don't make yourself wrong because of the grade you're in. Instead, enjoy the journey of being in elementary school so that you can continue to grow and learn. When the journey of reawakening was judged to be a separation from our divine birthright, we transformed a fun learning experience into a battle to recover what we feared we had lost. We forgot that the game board was not our true reality. An individuated aspect of the one self could never be separate from itself. We forgot the truth that we remain as God created us, perfect, whole, and complete. We forgot who we are. Truly, we mistook the voice for fear, lack, limitation, and separation to be our reality. Your ego is your false belief that you could be not perfect, not whole, and not complete. Your ego is the embodiment of your belief in separation. Your ego is the false notion of who you are. You are an individuated aspect of consciousness. In time and space, you are a feedback loop that allows you to recognize the effects of the decisions that you're currently making. You get to modify those decisions as needed as you hone your skills. This leads to your discovery of your true self, or something like that. So there we go. To your rediscovery of your true spiritual magnificence. Much better. Your ego is the embodiment of fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. When you realize that your problem is your belief in your ego's fear-based thought system, you can solve the problem at its source. You can decide to stop listening to the voice for fear. Your ego is the problem. It is foolish to expect the problem to solve itself. Instead, you need to remove yourself from the problem and listen to the voice for truth, which is also in your mind, that knows who you really are. The Holy Spirit is within you. Therefore, you have never been separate from God. The Holy Spirit is God's voice and the bridge that connects the Father to the Son. There is only one problem and one solution, and that's to get reconnected. Your ego is the problem, therefore your ego cannot be the solution. The solution has already been provided within your mind. All you need to do is to listen to that voice for God within, and you will realize that paradise was never lost, only forgotten. Listen exclusively to the Holy Spirit, and it will bring you home.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Papa. Wonderful. Let me recognize that my problems have been solved. Today, our job is to focus only on the solution that is in your hands. So let's take a minute, take a deep breath, and we're going to
And honey,
relax.
it's just that you're having a feedback from the other mic. I can hear a little bit of feedback of your voice in the other mic.
Thank you very much.
Or
I
it
can
was,
fix that.
or I don't know if it was Bob.
No,
I
I
don't
can
know.
fix it either way. Let me just check the audio settings real quick here. Every time, once in a while, it slips. Oh, looks like it was Dad. No big deal. Okay, so today, lesson 80, let me recognize that my problems have been solved. We're going to have a couple of longer practice periods today. And today, our job in the practice periods is to claim that peace. That must be ours when the problem and the answer have been brought together. It's like we were trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle in the dark. And once we turn the lights on, it's a lot easier to see how the problems can be solved. And then you look down and the jigsaw puzzle is completely solved. It's amazing. That's kind of how it works when the solutions land in our laps. Dad had one yesterday. Dad absolutely ran into somebody whose mom is in the government over in Liberia. Somebody who's been there for 10 years, and she got her MBA from NC State, where I went to school, in Raleigh, where Dad lives. And so we have a third person outside of the group to help give some validation. And that brought me tremendous peace of mind. To me, that was the miracle for me. That was the peace I got out of it. That problem was already solved without me worrying about it. That problem was already solved without me doing anything. But I didn't believe it before. I kept worrying, thinking, how do I fix this? It's like solving a jigsaw puzzle in the dark. All right. So let's get into our longer practice period. Sorry, I couldn't get that. I had to get that out of my brain, I suppose. A couple of deep breaths. Relax into your body for a minute. Relax into whatever surface is supporting you. Let yourself put down some deep roots of energy into the earth beneath you. And let it steady yourself. And start to feel the energy of our world course up into your body, through your chakras, into your heart, throat, face, and the crown of your head. And let the crown of your head pull your spine up straight so you're sitting up nice and straight, and you can pull in a deep breath. Let your belly expand so your lungs can expand and take in as much air as possible, and hold that breath for me. And when you're comfortable, just let it all out. We'll take another deep breath in a second. As soon as all that air is out of your lungs, take a deep breath as long as you can. We're going to go 8, 8, and 8. So breathe in for 5, 4, 3, 2, and hold it for me. And let your shoulders relax as you hold your breath. And do your best not to hold it with pressure, but just let it be released with control right now. Feel the power of the earth that you're rooted to coming up inside of you. And take one deep breath one more time, all the way in. And hold that breath as we remember that our problems have been solved. Exhale with control. Remember, one problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact, and you're ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation. Today, over and over, your job is to recognize that the only problem you have ever had has been solved. every single thing standing in your way has the same root of believing what we think rather than what vision really shows us. When our thoughts cloud our vision, we're seeing with our eyes, but we're perceiving with our minds. That perception that you have, that perceptive reality that you're living in, is an ego game that you don't have to play when you realize that your problems have been solved. Your ego's timetable is not relevant to God's solution. It's already there. We're stuck in time. Our ego doesn't like that. But if we let our ego relax and recognize that the problems have been solved, patience is a little easier. The older I get, the more patient I can be. But I can relax into patience, or I can be miserable. No need to be miserable today when I recognize all my problems have already been solved. One problem, one solution. Peace will start to arrive today as you recognize this, as you accept the answer, the only answer that makes sense when we're building on God's vision and not our own egoic, short-term perspective. Close your eyes and receive your reward. Recognize your problems have been solved. Recognize that you are out of conflict. You are free. You are at peace. Above all, remember that you have one problem, and the problem has one solution. It is this that makes the simplicity clear to anyone who truly looks and realizes this. Every day we are here and we talk about this. We talk about the same thing every day. God is love. There is nothing other than God. He is omnipotent, all time, all space, all matter. He is present. Omnipotent is everything. It's bigger than the idea of a father or a son or a Holy Ghost. We just use those metaphors to let your ego try and wrap its brain around it. But it will never really understand the totality of how gargantuan God really is. And we're a part of that, connected to everybody, all time and space. So how could your problem not be solved? Recognize that you are already there in the solution, out of conflict, free, and at peace, because that one problem has one solution. God is love. Show that problem love, and it will be resolved. Let the Holy Spirit work through you, and there will be no conflict. Assure yourself often today, that your problems have been solved. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. And if you stub your toe and you find yourself angry, as soon as you can get this thought back in your mind, let me recognize this problem has been solved, that will vanish in front of you. The pain of stubbing your toe will evaporate. These emotional toes, they can be taken well care of by God. No problem. So today, let me recognize this problem has been solved. And let's start to take a couple of deep breaths. Remember that inside of us is this beautiful white light, the love of God, always present. It can't be taken away. You can't sell your soul to something that doesn't exist because there's only God in the absence of God. You will always have God as your center, and it's bigger than your body. So let's imagine that light inside of us. Feel that light spread outside of us. Feel that light connect with the other lives around us. The world is teeming with life, and it's all connected through God. All the light of the world shining incredibly bright out into the universe. Today, let me recognize this problem has been solved. All right, let's come back to today. It's March 21st. Yesterday was the first day of spring, and I thought today was the first day of spring. So, our question of the day, this is a great one, Tom. Holy moly. You ready? Does Jesus have an ego? Does Jesus have an ego? It seems like, here's my guess. I'll take my first stab at it. I'll put my neck out here, and you guys tell me what you think. I bet he did. I bet possessing the body makes it impossible not to have something that builds a story up around why I've got to feed this thing 3 times a day, why I've got to breathe every single minute, why I've got to drink water at least once a day if I want to feel comfortable. There must be something that goes along with that. Some struggle that he went through so that he knows how frustrating it is to be stuck in this body, weighed down with the boat anchors of life dragging behind you as you trudge forward towards the horizon, not knowing what trouble you're going to run into next.
I guess he left all those things in the desert.
Well, that is what the Bible tells us. I think that's a really great point, Adriana. Thank you. I think it's the struggles in life and finding your way through them that help us map our way through all the future struggles. But this lesson today is about realizing that there's only one problem to run into. And so our struggles, most of the time, are imagined struggles. My struggle with my ex-wife is absolutely 100% within our heads. That's the same as saying it's an imagined struggle. Yes, she does stuff that's frustrating that I have to clean up. From her perspective, I'm sure I'm doing stuff that she feels she's got to clean up. We're both cleaning up an imaginary mess. There's nothing wrong with our kids. There's nothing wrong with us. We could get along and things would be easy.
Well, Bob
So,
and Tom has the mic on, so
yeah,
I'm gonna say if you guess what number do I have in my head, I will give you the turn.
7.
No, it's not your turn. I'm saying Tom and Bob.
Okay, Tom and Bob.
Who wants to speak first, Bob or Tom? They both had their mic on. Tom, go ahead.
Well, the ego is really just how we tend to view ourselves. And so the ego is very flexible. from the standpoint of how we view ourselves now. Like Lee said, actually, in time and space, which is the world of perception, we tend to have a association with the body, and we tend to see ourselves as separate. So it's our interpretation, and Course in Miracles says something about the idea that in time and space we generally don't have truth or knowledge. What we have is we want to have correct perception. Correct perception is uh, realizing the truth even within the illusion of separation, or even within time and space. So you can have an ego or an identification of how you're defining yourself as realizing that you have a game token that's playing on the game board of separation, and that would be correct perception, because that's what it is. It's not you that's playing on the, uh, or it's a game. It's a simulation. So what happens to your game token on the board is not of consequence. But so you're aware of the truth. Uh, Somewhere not in the Course of Miracles, but elsewhere, Jesus says, one of uh, during the crucifixion, he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And he said that that was an unfortunate comment, so to speak, because that was a slip of moving into that reality of the idea that was not correct perception, because God had never forsaken him. So, just this idea of how we define ourselves. And in this world of space and time, what we're looking for is to try and have a quote unquote ego that understands correct perception, which is that we shouldn't be taking this game of separation too seriously, and we should remember to laugh and realize that this is all just something for us to learn and demonstrate individuated aspects of love and form. So, the ego is not, necessarily a quote unquote bad thing. There's no such thing as good and bad. It's like anything, it's neutral. But what we want is we want correct perception as opposed to incorrect perception, which makes the illusion or the belief that we're separate real within our own mind. So that would be, I'd say, the distinction. So, like, in order to maybe play on the game board, we have to agree to certain rules. One rule might be that we need the body to be able to play on that game board. Uh, and so it's just the idea of, are we following correct perception, or are we misperceiving things and making illusions real, and therefore slipping into fear? Uh, so that would be
So,
my take on
does Jesus have
it.
an ego?
Well, um, in time and space, he's going to have a hopefully he'll have correct perception. And whenever he said that, he, and my God, why have you forsaken me? That would be an example of perhaps having uh, misperception at that moment in time. So it's how you identify yourself. Do you define yourself as God's beloved child, or do you part of that one self, or do you define yourself at any given moment, okay, as something that's separate. So the definition really it becomes a question of ego. What is ego? If you say ego is how I identify myself at any particular moment in time, then the answer would be, yes, you have an ego. God, quote unquote, uh, knows, and it's interesting. God says, when or what it's been said, when you define me, you limit me. So whenever we want to define ourselves through the belief in limitation, we limit the unlimitedness. So, that this is a question of when you say that ego is for any, particular individuated aspect, how they define themselves, then yeah, uh, we could even say that, uh, and this is why, this concept of God, this idea is how do you define yourself? What we want in time and space, which is the world of perception, perception being the idea that there's an observer and something outside itself to observe. Uh, if you want to play on that game, you have to have a perspective or a perception of something outside of yourself. The truth is the realization that uh, the law of God is to give is to receive, that they're just really the oneness. So it's really a question in time and space. Yeah, we got an ego. Is it going to be an identification of correct perception, or is it going to be an identification of misperception, which says that my game token is now me, and I maybe believe that I have to get some particular result or outcome to uh, earn salvation. So it's this idea, do you believe in lack, limitation, and sin, or do you see yourself perfect, whole, and complete? So if we could walk around, and I'm going to say it's possible, Jesus tried to do this, is to walk around with the idea, the total realization that not only am I perfect, whole, and complete, but all other individuated aspects of the one self are also perfect, whole, and complete. That would be correct perception. If I believe that I'm perfect, whole, and complete, or I claim to believe that I'm perfect, whole, and complete, but I see you as not perfect, whole, and complete, that's wrong or misperception. And I really don't have, even though I thought I saw myself as perfect, whole, and complete, I really don't, because I'm seeing you as flawed. And the law of God is to give is to receive. If I see you that you're not on your own perfect path, then I have a problem. Okay. So it all comes well. So what we're trying to do in time and space is to develop not knowledge. It, of course, Miracle says the final step, to knowledge or truth done by God. Uh, but what we want in time and space is correct perception. And as long as you want to uh, make this dimension of time and space something that you need to get a particular result, I need to solve the world's problems or Joe's problems or Marianne's problems or my own supposed problems. That is the problem. I
I
need
found.
to know. Thank you.
Tom, it's just that
I have a couple of thoughts.
Okay.
Correct perception has to do with the problem is that he had a different expectation. This is my opinion. His expectation was when he came to fix the world that he could do it. And his disruption of the current activities right then and there where he existed extended time such that he could not complete his job, his instructed, appointed job then. And so what happened was there was an upset, and the time norm, the normal aspect, had to be shifted because obviously everybody wasn't feeling really good about what was going on. He had to choose again when would be the right time to come and fix the world. And in the 2000 years, he decided and found a better to fix the entire world instead of just the people in Jerusalem, for example. At that point, which is now, in my opinion, he has placed his wisdom, all that we need to know correctly, in a book called A Course in Miracles. He is returning right now as we witness his return to give us all of the wisdom we need to correct everything here. Each of us has a job to do. He had a job to do then when he was on earth. So, yes, when he was on earth, he did take the ego on a little bit, a little teeny tiny part, so that he could walk a mile in our shoes and understand that we will doubt things, even at the last moment. But he taught us a way now to not have to doubt ever. Today's lesson is a perfect example of that.
And
All the problems
I'll
have
give
now
you
been solved.
and I'll give you a part of the book that is really attached to that opinion that you have just made. And this
Okay.
is a part of the book that is in chapter 1, the meaning of miracles, and section 3, atonement and miracles. And it says this part that I found: I am the only one who can perform miracles indiscriminately. Sorry for my bad reading there. Because I am the atonement. You have a role in the atonement, which I will dictate to you. Ask me which miracles you should perform. This spares you needless effort, because you will be acting under direct communication. The impersonal nature of the miracle is an essential ingredient, because it enables me to direct its application. And under my guidance, miracles led to the highly personal experience of revelation. So this is the part that I found most important in this moment. The impersonal nature of the miracle is an essential ingredient, because it enables me to direct its application, and under my guidance, miracles led to the highly personal experience of revelation. A guide does not control, but he does direct, leaving it up to you to follow. Let us not into temptation means recognize your error and choose to abandon them by following my guidance. That's the part that I wanted to share, because it has a lot to do with this
Well,
specific. Let the Father be the Father. That's why let me recognize my problems have been solved, right?
I think it's a trick question, honestly. The idea of, Jesus having an ego, who are we to even suppose that, right? We can guess about his human experience, right? How much of that did he have? Did he have to go through, the same kinds of challenges that somebody who is spiritually inclined usually goes through a lot of life challenges, and I would say that Jesus definitely falls under that category, right? But you know, for us to propose somebody has an ego or not an ego, as we look into others, and especially Christ, it's a reflection of us, right? So I think that if we're in an egoic state of mind, that a lot of people out there will start to look like they have egos. If I'm in a humble state of mind, that really won't be important to me, right? Um, and in fact, it's even better that I'm an independent, positive energy force for people around me, rather than to, be the same as everybody else. And, I guess my point is that, for us to assume or to question, you know, um, it's like, does God have an ego? I don't know. Is he trying to prove himself to another God? you know, um, I don't think at the levels that of spirituality they operate at that even occurs. If Christ did work as a body and as a mind, and when he was here, he was human, and the struggles he went through were designed to humble him, right? Then maybe he had the biggest ego in the world, and that expanse that he traveled in between egoic self and self with a capital S, direct connection with God. Um, I haven't met many people that have made this spiritual path, and here's a question for the whole group here, that have lived an easy life, that haven't had any emotional challenges or challenges that have made us question who you are. And I think it's those types of questions that draw out the ego and make it look as it really is. Um, and I just think that our egos make us think that we know something more about what is around us. And maybe sometimes it even goes so far as to assume there's going to be a certain playing of events that's going to
Hmm.
happen because we have thought of it, right? But the reality is that God works in such a way that, some people say God is mysterious, but I think what it is we don't have his long-term plan. We don't
Hmm.
have his point in perception. And to think of God and not God, because ego is often called easing God out, right? And
Hmm.
if you're easing God out and taking that spirituality and pushing it aside, maybe those were the temptations. Maybe those were the struggles with ego. And then as a spiritual figure, it's possible that his vacillation in between the spirit world and the human experience could have had such an expanse, such a gap in between the two of highs and lows, that could have been the spiritual catalyst that pushed him forward and stuck him at a higher spiritual level each time he was challenged, right? Um, but I think we could say that for most everybody in the room, right? That it's our choice whether we want to live in heaven or hell on this planet based on how much we want to spend in ego versus enlightenment. And that's our choice. Thank you.
Beautiful, Sean. Thanks. Welcome up to the stage, guys. Anybody else want to share? This is a juicy question. I think we could all kind of chew on this one. This was an inspired question. Easy for me to see, Tom. This was an inspired question. Um, and Sean, I definitely think you're right. You're
Well,
right.
the book
I
really
could
has the
add.
answer.
Oh,
Go, Jack.
Let's
good
see.
morning, everyone.
Hey, Janine.
I could add something. I'm very late in this, so I'm not sure what's been said. I saw the question posted. The first thing that came to mind was, I always feel we're co-creators with the Holy Spirit, and because I'm sure it's happened to you all, especially once you become aware of the law of attraction, I've thought things and desired things, and they've happened. It happens a lot. It's happened a lot in my life, and who's thinking the thought? Who wants it? Is it the Holy Spirit working through me? Did Holy Spirit want that as me, or did my ego itself want it? Because some of the things I wanted were not like necessarily that important or anything that was going to help anybody or anything. They weren't spiritual desires specifically; they were personal desires. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. So that it's really hard to tease that out. Um, I just feel we're always co-creating. I probably Jesus had that experience. Jesus wanted good things to happen, and isn't that still ego when you're still wanting not the ego itself in the way it's talked about in Course in Miracles, but just as self, he wanted things. I don't know. It's a great question, but that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
I have to say that this chapter that I found in the book is really like a piece of the answer that these questions had, because that particular chapter, the meaning of miracles, and this section, atonement of miracles, is his words. I mean, he is really in first person. He's really talking in first person here, and he says, I mean, what I read earlier, it was a part of this, but the full section is his words, and he says, I am in charge of the process of atonement, which I undertook to begin. When you offer a miracle to any of my brothers, you do it to yourself and me. The reason you come before me is that I do not need miracles for my own atonement, but I stand at the end in case you fail temporarily. My part in the atonement is the canceling out of all errors that you could not otherwise correct. When you have been restored to the recognition of your original state, you'll naturally become part of the atonement yourself. As you
Yeah.
share my unwillingness to accept error in yourself and others, you must join the crusade to correct it. Well, I mean, and he says here, for example, something about the word. My word, which is the resurrection and the life, shall not pass away because life is eternal.
Yeah.
You are the work of God. So the words, the thought, the idea that life it's eternal and that life it's God running again the show is really what he intended to show, even if he had an ego or not. I mean, the ego might be part of his presence here in the physical level of the form, but his essence is just the idea. That's why he can give us this new way of getting in contact with him, because the idea of life, it's among every single thing that you see with your eyes. And as we can all read or have contact with this book, well, we can now really believe what Bob was giving us as an opinion earlier, that it's not a thing. I
You
mean, I truly believe this.
you
Is
definitely. I'm sorry. We've come back to this over and over again. You're absolutely right, Adriana. It's atonement. The atonement means we're realizing we're one at one. The problem has been solved. If we're asking any of these questions, we're probably not sitting in the solution. But when you start looking at it from the other side, where the solution is, that we're all a part of God, that the solution's already there, that everything's already solved, there's no problem even, then everything we talk about and have talked about for the last hour and 10 minutes is exactly this thing. One solution. It's already there. It's already at hand. It's already
just going in
And
happened.
circles.
and I think it is my ego that still sometimes wants to believe that it's on its own and
Yeah,
it's about
but it's
me.
not.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's not. We're all cradled and safe and sound and secure, and there's nothing to worry about. And all the stuff we worry about can be reduced back down to this. Today, recognizing that any problem we see in front of us really has already been solved. No BS, no woo woo, but really, it's really already there. It's already done.
Whenever Adriana, mentioned that in chapter 1, of course, chapter 1 is the beginning. And but is Jesus speaking of himself as a separated individual aspect, or a separate entity, or is he speaking with the knowledge of the truth of what he is? Elsewhere it says, we should look at Jesus as an older brother, someone who has maybe a little more wiser, a little more knowledge, and he's going to meet us where we are. But he says, awe is not something that he's due respect as an older brother, but we shouldn't put him on a pedestal
Exactly.
and say that we should worship him, because we're all. It says one solution, one problem, one solution. The belief that we are separate and that we're not God's beloved child with whom it, she, he, whatever you want to call it, the universe is well pleased. It says that is the problem. Correct that problem, otherwise move to misperception to correct perception, and the problem goes away. And that's what Jesus is saying. He's going to help us reawaken. He goes and he says, if you want to be like me, knowing that we are the same, I will help you. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind. So, as Bob was saying, maybe 2,000 years later, or I, you, whoever, we're all on our own perfect path, but now you might be further along that path. And now he can help us a little bit more. He's, if we want to use time as a physical, construct, we've moved through 2,000 years of changes within our own egoic identification of who we are and on our own perfect path. And now maybe we're willing to reach out and ask for assistance. And if we are, says, hey, I'm here to help. I'll help you, but I'm not going to say that your perfect path is wrong because it's a little different than me, or because I'm further up the hill. We're all on our own perfect path. All that we have to do is realize that there's nothing wrong with our path. It can't change our true reality, that we are, as it says, that oneness, part of the sonship, okay, and that we're all part of that. And ultimately, two sides of one cord, one indivisible coin. So thank you.
Well, I'm going to add one. Oh, hi, Bill.
Go ahead, Bob.
This is a quickie. I think that at the last moment, when he was up on the cross, and he said, supposedly, forsaken me, I think that the idea of doubt was introduced at the highest level, and that he showed that he was willing to walk our path. Because with us, and if you watched all of these lessons of the book, It's all about getting rid of doubt, the doubt that God could or would forsake us. Even at the moment of physical death, which is the ultimate doubt, why have you forsaken me? Why am I up on this cross? The reality that we all pretty much have heard about, not everybody believes, is that we are a spiritual essence that continues on beyond time, beyond doubt, and we then know completely. In the meantime, this to me proves that he had the slightest kernel that to recognize that most of us are going to have a lot of doubts through this process, and his job is to help take us past that doubt, because he never really died. He's still here. He has chosen to come again. And this time he's going to finish up the job with us. So that's where I stand. And I've got to leave in just a few minutes because I have a meeting this morning. So I'm going to listen for a little bit and then I'll have to move on. So that was my thought. Bill, back to
Good morning, everyone. I have often thought of, when I think of the Satan that is written about biblically, as a metaphor for the ego, and and much less so, or probably not at all, as the sort of red guy with the pitchfork and the pointy tail, that version of Satan that so many think of. And I don't say that to say that I'm right or wrong. That's just my perspective on it. And that leads me to, as we're discussing this question of, did Jesus have an ego? My memory could be a little bit off, but the story that came to mind for me is when Jesus went into the desert. I think it was for 40 days, and he fasted. And as per the Bible, as I remember it, Satan came to Jesus and said, "If you're the Son of God, why don't you turn these stones to bread?" I think it was. And Jesus's reply was, "Get thee behind me, Satan." And I think that that is, uh, Jesus, possibly, probably metaphorical for Jesus's ego, saying, "Well, are you really the Son of God? And if you were really the Son of God, you could turn these stones to bread and you would no longer be hungry." Um, and and I think this may be congruent with what Sean said earlier. I think that it's an interesting question, and it may be instructive and edifying for us to consider whether or not Jesus had an ego or not. But at some level, I think it's probably also um, a conversation about separation, and I think that Jesus probably faced many of the same things, and as I think Tom pointed out, he's just further along than us. It's not that he's better, or um, more a son of God than any of us. It's just he's further down the road than us. So that's my perspective on it.
Just being slightly funny, I'll be quick about it. I could just imagine Jesus starving through the desert and thinking, yeah, I made water into wine, but here I can't make rocks into bread. I'm hungry. I could just imagine that. Sorry.
Right, right.
I digress.
That's really funny.
Well, I guess what If you see it in another perspective, what he might be doing in the desert was just losing all the attachments, all the attachments that are the 7 sins that I was talking about the other day. Because the sins are not like this, uh, like this full bad thing. They are just attachment to this level of the form. So being all alone and without any kind of yeah, it's just that I don't want to say attachment again, but it is there. I mean, he loses the attachment to the level of the
Could it
form.
be that the attachment to the problem is the same as the attachment to the form? Our ego's attachment to the problem and focusing on the problem, not that it's already been solved, is our attachment to the form. And once we release this and we go into really focus on God is love and there's nothing other than love, the problem disappears because the solution is provided with that. We come out of duality and back into this non-dualistic version that specifically, we say non-dualistic because saying one implies that there's more. Saying not, there's nothing more than the one, non-dualistic, is recognizing the problem's been solved. There's no problem for the other side. And it doesn't work in our world. I get it. It's a one-sided coin. We can't have a one-sided coin in our physical world.
No, but it's just that you can have. Oh, I mean, you can have the one coin with both sides. Is how you perceive that. It's like the issue
Absolutely
there.
agree. Yep, you're right. Yep, I know this. This is the mystery, but it's the problem is if we say there's a problem, we're not seeing the solution. It's just it's still, if both sides of the coin are a yes, heads you win, tails you win, heads I win, tails I win, and even if it lands on that edge somehow, one out of
Exactly.
1,000 times, we both win anyway.
Yeah,
So
that's heaven on earth.
let's go with God today, recognize the problem has been solved, and keep that with you today. Tie a little string around your finger if you need to. Tomorrow we're going to start with the review lessons. We got 10 days of review, so we're going to go right back over this, really focusing on giving up the idea that we have grievances, need grievances, that there's a problem there, to get to the real solution, that God lies beyond all of these problems. And the longer you focus on looking at the problems, the more you're trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle in the dark. Bring God into the equation. That'll turn the light on. And then this jigsaw puzzle is easy to put together. It's like 3 pieces. It's a 3-piece jigsaw puzzle, guys. It's not 1,000 pieces. There's one problem. It's solved the same way every time. It's solved by bringing love to the situation. No matter how terrible it is. Look, I'll give you my own personal situation. I'm going to see my daughter, my 11-year-old daughter, for the first time today. Haven't seen her for more than 2 weeks since she sent her mom the video of me, what she felt was, I guess, abusing her brother, at least to a degree where she felt, I got to make a recording just in case of, I don't know what she was thinking, but that recording is a wonderful miracle. I'm proud of her for doing it. I can't punish her for doing really what she thought she was doing something to protect her brother. And in the video, she came over to try and help me. She knew it was frustrating. She knew I spent 2 hours. She knew I called her mom twice. She knew how hard I was trying. She helped as much as she could help. And she went away because there was literally not much to be done. I just had to get this boy to school. She
Because
said,
in her little child's mind, a parent getting a kid to school is the worst thing, forcing them to go to school.
I mean, maybe there's 1,000 ways to think about this, but I can come right back to, no matter what happened, there is no problem. And in the end, what she did was provide the evidence so the judge could look at what happened. This past Thursday, if the judge didn't have the video to look at, And I had to insist that it be shown. Trish fumbled around and didn't want to show it. I told my lawyer she's got it and it should be seen. The judge says, "Are you sure you want to show this to me, man? You're going to be guilty and you're not going to see your kids for a year if what I see in here matches the description of why I gave out this restraining order 10 days ago to this woman." And it was the same judge that denied the restraining order to Trish when she tried to get one on her father this past summer. So he's issued several temporary injunctions that he's now gone back on, 2 of them to Trish. And I wonder if the next time she tries to go get one, if he'll really think twice and maybe consider not giving it to her, because she's lied to him twice and he's found out about it twice. And he's gotten mad at her twice. And we're in a pretty small town. This is Newburyport's not very big. So I'm going to keep telling the truth, and I'm going to be proud of my daughter when I see her, and I'm going to tell her how much I love her, just like I did last night on the phone. And then I'm going to listen and find out what she was thinking and try and help her see that there was no problem, that getting my son to school is my job as a parent. And sometimes you've got to be a friend. Sometimes you've got to be a parent and do the parent thing. And it was apparent that I was a parent. So I did my job.
That was such beautiful justice. I love that story.
It really is. It really is. And honestly, my ego got involved, and I wanted to find out whether it was Trish that, embellished what happened. Great, it doesn't matter. And I thank you, Adriana, for reminding me of that. I appreciate it. I really do. It's the real solution is that there's no problem. If it gets to the point where, Grace wants to know why the judge changed his mind, I've got what Trish wrote out, the affidavit that she wrote out to get it. So if she pushes me, I can show her, but I don't think she will. I don't think there's really any need to point fingers and lay blame on anybody, because it's not going to help us come back together. And that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to have a family that works together. That's how we come together with teamwork, Anyway, I'll keep being part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Hey, Maggie, Tamara, Jordan, any of you guys, or Sean, go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say something real quick about a word you used, which is duality. Duality for me means that there is a dual existence. So for when I feel, fear, grief, or apathy, I feel like the duality is the inner wisdom, inner love, and oneness in being joyous in that example, right? That there's a, a fear-based feeling and a love-based feeling, and a way of being, and that we can see. There's a phrase that we can see in others what we see in ourselves, and it's kind of a reverse projection. And when I project into a situation, I use my values and interpretation to think of what's going on. It's like that saying, there's my truth, your truth, and the actual truth, right? The unobservable truth, or maybe you weren't in an observing mind when it happened, right? In a very egoic mind, so the interpretation of the event is egoic. And this duality is something I think that it's most likely the reason we're all on the phone is the idea of being able to elevate ourselves spiritually, out of where we're at, and or share that spiritual experience to make it stronger, and make it resonate more. Make love resonate more by starting your day out with people that love you unconditionally and are talking and going through this spiritual experience. And I think duality, like, does Jesus have an ego or not an ego, that question is all about duality. I think it is introspection to realize, if you're elevated enough spiritually, the difference in between you and God shrinks, meaning that if you're at love, for example, that above that becomes true enlightenment, where the feeling of God is ineffable, and that you literally can't measure its feeling. You can't understand, and it's just accepting it as a pure form of energy, as a pure form of light, is the duality for the darkness that we suffer from, and that ego usually is the source of this fear-based thinking, you know. Um, and I just wanted to say that, when we take our life from happiness and productivity to putting meaning into life, to being perfect and complete, that's true presence and oneness of joy when we're truly perfect and complete. And that the bliss and serenity that we get from, being at a high level, at a non-egoic level, where our observation, our views don't matter, because what was going to happen is going to happen. And that, if I'm trying to put my interpretation into an event, I'm already not listening at the truth. The truth shall set you free, and the truth will be self-evident. And if something isn't self-evident, needs justification, needs more talking to explain away what actually happened, I find that there's less truth in those situations, because there needs to be more egoic explanation. And it's just something I live by, and I've gotten a lot of peace out of, living in those kind of higher planes of existence when I can grasp them, because the duality means that will come and go. And that there was something that was said in this group this morning, where when you let go absolutely, the last step is taken by God. When you go through the Course in Miracles, the last step is taken by God. Eckhart Tolle and David Hawkins said the same thing, that the last steps are not about you. They're not even taken by you, right? That if you're already at a point as a plane of existence of, fully allowing, and have the synchronicity with these extraordinary outcomes that we interpret as miracles, that we're already discussing on a very high consciousness level with everybody in this room. And I just wanted to share that what I get out of this room. And, I hope that, you get what's valuable to you out of this experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. All right, who's up next? Well, I thought of a duel with duality. To get rid of the duality, have a duel. One person's going down. So our ego's like Aaron Burr.
Nice one. I'm following you, brother.
You got me, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you use the word ineffable. I love that word because we rarely use it, but it's really another duality type idea. Come back to recognizing that all the problems have been solved. Because we have a review tomorrow, today is kind of like the end of a 40-day run of.
Can you read the titles of this entire part
Sure.
of because
Yeah, it does
I
come.
always love like
Oh,
read
yeah.
them the titles, like see the storytelling in the titles. It's
Oh my
fun.
God, you're absolutely right. You can see it on the share now.
Yeah.
All right. So we started, I don't know if you guys remember this, but we had a review at 50. So the first 50 lessons kind of went together as a group. And then 61 through 80, these last 20, they're kind of a group. So here it is. I am the light of the world. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. There we go. Now I got it on the screen. The light, and I've got to make it even wider so I can see the whole title. Some of the titles are long. Little screen. Let me move you.
If you place the cursor on the title, you get to see the full sentence.
Are you brilliant or what? You're so smart. All right. I am the light of the world. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. The light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. Let me not forget my function. My only function is the one God gave me. My happiness and my function are one. Love created me like itself. Love holds no grievances. My grievances hide the light of the world in me. Salvation comes from me. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. I will there be light. There is no will but God's. The light has come. I am under no laws but God's. I am entitled to miracles. Let miracles replace all grievances. Let me recognize the problem so it could be solved. And finally, here we are. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Today you can go around like you've made it over the finish line already. The touchdown is made. You've won the game. Today you get to celebrate in the end zone.
Have you seen that this is, have you, honey,
Should go with basketball analogies.
we have this week that just passed, we had this like one day good, one day bad, one day good, one day bad. Have you seen the relationship with these titles? The titles stayed like one through, and then
there's a roller coaster in there.
In the titles you get to see that kind of same dynamics.
It makes you want to get rid of those grievances.
Because, for example, if you say, my grievances hide the light of the world, it's kind of getting you into a negative belief system. And then the other one says, my salvation comes from me. That's a positive belief system. Only God's plans for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack on God. I mean, it like this full section takes you from negative belief systems to positive belief systems, and it is like expanding and it's just that I'm seeing the relationship between these titles and the past week. In the 73, I will there be light, and then there is no will but God. So you get to realize that you don't have your ego is not the will, but God's is. And then it says the light has come. And then it says, I'm under no laws but God. So it makes you think about the laws in this world. I mean, it's funny. I just see this relationship right now with the past week that we have.
Yep. It's like we're climbing a ladder, they're going down the ladder. We're climbing the ladder, going down the ladder.
Yeah, something like that. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Stella, I owe you a call. I know I haven't been able to find the time. I'm so sorry, my friend. We have been
Good
playing.
morning, everybody. It's fine. It's fine,
Yeah,
darling.
I have to call
It's good to
you.
be here.
Yeah, good to have
No
you here.
problem. No problem. You know, have you guys seen the movie The Last Temptation of Christ? Because you guys are
Came
talking
out a
about
while
this
ago.
Jesus having ego. In that particular movie, it basically showed Jesus with an ego. So if you're interested in actually having that experience of fantasy or whatever,
Maybe I
about
can
Jesus
put
being
together a
a man.
movie night. Maybe we
Yeah,
can put
yeah,
together a
yeah. We
movie
did that
night.
over at in the other group, and actually that was one of the movies that we kind of like explored. It was
Rev
scary.
has that, right? With Rev.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was quite interesting actually.
I was a bit disappointed with that film because I watched
Yeah,
it.
me too.
I watched it like I don't know, like 25 years ago, and I thought it was amazing. And then I watched it again for a class I was teaching religion and film, and it defaults back into the standard Christianity interpretation, which is what it explores this idea that he had an ego, and then that he got off the cross, and sorry, I don't want to give it away, but then it just defaults to.
You can't spoil the ending. I mean, we've
I'm
all
so
read the ending.
sorry.
It's already done. It's okay.
It's okay.
I'll join the
It's
group,
fine.
or maybe I shouldn't, and just listen and see another interpretation.
It's all good.
No,
That's
you're
my point. Is
good.
it's
You're
all
good.
good. It's all an interpretation of Christ. The last interpretation of Christ.
There
But
are
no,
no
finish.
private thoughts. All minds are joined.
That's
Yes,
right.
Mm,
Bill. Absolutely.
right.
But
Very true.
No, but
oh
what you were
man,
saying about you were trying to make a point about that. I'd like to hear what you have to say. I don't know if you finished after you
you
What?
spoiled,
Oh,
did a little
I'm done.
spoiler thing.
I think I've spoiled it enough. I'll wait. I'll wait for the
No,
conversation.
but tell us what happened with
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
class.
go
I mean,
ahead. Right.
you were using that as a teaching resource, and what you found out was what it was too Catholic and full of the.
It wasn't what I remembered it. I remembered it, in my memory, it was a lot more of, an alternative interpretation. I was bringing in films for that class that were all just different interpretations of different religions. It wasn't just Christianity. We had films on Islam and Hinduism and so on. And when I watched it, I felt like it was really an exploration and alternative interpretation, but in the end, it sort of fell back into the traditional Christian, the traditional Christian narrative.
And out of your experience with that, which movie which movie do you recommend us to
Oh,
see?
definitely not that one. Definitely right.
is
No,
I didn't
no, not
mention it.
that
is there
one, of
I
one
course.
didn't mention it to
that
say
sees it
that.
from
I
our
just said
perspective?
that it. Right. I was just mentioning. I was just sitting down thinking about the question and was saying that yeah, that movie kind of explored that idea.
Okay, I
Yeah,
want to see the non-duality of Christ. That's the movie I want to see.
yeah, something like that. I don't. I'm trying to think if I know what that is, but I don't. And for another film which I wasn't teaching, I was TAing. We saw The Passion of Christ, which was, I don't know, have you seen that one? That one's horribly violent. But
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
my question around that, actually, since I'm now actively talking, my question around that, and also related to kind of what Bob said earlier about Christ having that moment of doubt, is and then how. So my question that I have for myself is, how do we behave amidst this, the manifestations in our world that are inherently error, and the whole turn the other cheek and so on, when someone's being that violent? Is it not more appropriate to um to stand up for justice in the world? And I just wonder. It's just a question I have on, like, appropriate action. And I was having this conversation with a friend last night, and I was actually talking about Course in Miracles and all this stuff that I'm understanding differently than I have before, and how great it is. And she was saying that she, in the spiritual New Age community, have noticed for many years that people were not taking responsibility in their lives, and they were trying to, we call it like a spiritual bypass. They're trying to, like, spiritual bypass their problems, and sort of like, sage them away, so to speak, is what she was saying. Chants and bells and things, and not really address the problems at hand. And I am wondering, and I mean, I don't know, none of us were there. I mean, maybe we were. I don't remember if I was there. I don't have a recollection, but, like, what actually happened, and to what extent. My question has been, and I didn't grow up in Christianity, so this, it could be a little bit more like blasphemous or whatever. Like, but, like, to what extent did Christ actually just kind of screw up, kind of like not
In
really.
fact, Gary Renard's books talks about that, because Gary Renard books in The Disappearance of the Universe, Arten and Pursa, that are really Thaddeus and Thomas, They say that, of course, Jesus Christ was human as you and me, and he had Mary Magdalene as his partner. He married her. The part of the Bible that states that he turned water into wine is not because he was a guest in that wedding, it's because it was their wedding, the wedding of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And they say that
Because he was a
that
cheap Jew, right? That's what you're getting at. Just
he was a
science.
cheap Jew, and she was a wealthy
Yes,
Jewish woman. She was the one with the money.
that's
In
right.
We need a
fact,
movie of Gary Renard's book. I actually love
yeah,
that book. It's
There we
wonderful.
go.
he has been trying. He has been trying to have that, but for some reason, there's a lot of things that haven't been able to fall in place for him to have a good deal on that. It seems to. So he has been trying to do that a long time. I don't know. I don't know more news about it yet. It's just that my friend, the one that introduced me to A Course in Miracles, she's friends with Gary. So I know a little bit of this kind of things because of her, and she told me about that. But I was talking about the part that Jesus that he was really a person as everybody else. It's just that he really understood the truth, so he really dismissed all the level of the form conflict, because for him everything was real crystal clear, and that's how he could perform those kind of miracles in the level of the form. And he was trying to teach everybody this wisdom, of course, but he never wanted to be famous. He never wanted to. In fact, when he met, what I found out is that what I have read, because I don't know if all these things are facts, but it's what I found after reading several things, is that when he found Mary Magdalene was doing the same kind of teachings, but towards women. And the fact that she was being called a whore is because she was wealthy, and she was a very well educated woman. She had the blessing of having an uncle that supported her and sponsored all her studies. So she was one of the most wisest women in that particular time. And she was trying to save out of poverty the women that were dismissed because they were getting older and they were no longer useful for marriage. So the families left them aside, and the poor girls were starving, and they had to come into prostitution in order to feed themselves. And Mary Magdalene bought a house. And the house has a lot of room, and a lot of rooms, and the people thought that she was going to get married or something and have a bunch of kids, but in fact, no. She needed that house because she built it like a house for these women to be able to eat, be educated, and be really restated to the conditions of in the mindset that they are fully holy and complete to be able to continue their lives in another mind state. So when Jesus found Mary Magdalene was doing the same thing that he was doing, but towards the women, and that's why he found her as a one, as his one, because she was doing kind of the same kind of things that he was doing, and that's why he put her always like the. I mean, that's why the disciples were so envious or jealous of her, because he was really seeing in her all the things that he had been doing. But he said to her that the only difference between her and him is that he got famous about it because he was a man and she was not. That's the only difference that he could see between her and him. So, well, I don't know, it's just that Jesus came in form here as a human being, yes, and he just wanted us to go back to one single consciousness. And he left his body, and he's not going back because he already stated that the kingdom of heaven is within us. So he's no longer in need to have a body, because he understood that if he come back in a body form, everybody will follow him, and he didn't want it to be followed. He just wanted to be heard in this huge message that we are all God's sons and that the kingdom of heaven is within us. So he doesn't want to be in form of a human being anymore, because otherwise all the people will follow him and disregard the teaching. So that's what I have learned from other kind of sources, but who knows?
I was thinking that I mean, I don't know that much about Christianity, but you know, the second coming could have just been the course, you know, as that
Yeah,
form of him.
yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, it is, because it's entirely the. I mean, this is so mathematically correct. Every time that I have experienced this
Is my
book,
dad?
every
My
time.
dad's not here. That's Dad's whole premise to the
Yeah,
world. Yeah, that's
exactly.
not my dad.
That's not your only idea. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That absolutely believes that this is a new kind of incarnation where it's a lot easier to have people scribe and have that disseminated this way. I mean,
It
But the
makes sense,
reality,
because you cannot worship a book. You cannot worship a book. You can only read it and learn it.
but
That's
the
why.
yeah, the reality is it's always been that way. This is what I mean, I kind of knew that, but I've sort of come across some of the metaphysical physical science books from the early, and I think Andy got me into this because she was talking about Neville Goddard, and then I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with that stuff, and they're talking about the same things. I mean, some of it's more law of attraction leaning, but it's all about this, you know, cosmic mind, of which our subconscious minds are are a part of. You know, that they're not separate. So there's that stuff which was channeled the late 1800s. Of course, there all the seances and so on. But you know, if you look at, I mean, in Hinduism, you've got all the tantras are basically channeled. They're considered to be channeled works from the deities. I don't think it's new. I think it's just I'm just trying to I was talking about this with my friend last night as well. It's just like, what's is this new? I don't think it's new. And how did, you know, all this metaphysical stuff, which is so amazing. It's just like there's just so much stuff out there with the same message.
Yeah, I do
it's not
believe.
new. We're just it's like discovering the universe. It's like figuring out 1 + 1 = 2. It wasn't any less 3 before. We just figured it out, you know?
We
Oh,
just
okay.
we
I
just have
agree. Yeah.
Just
these
wake up.
resources. Yeah.
I
Sorry.
just was going to say I agree with you. Yeah, that's ancient scriptures say it because it's philosophy. It's it's like when they've actually, you know, taken apart the human mind already and discovered a lot about it, that it's, you know, the way that it functions. And I love the Mary Magdalene story. And
Mhm.
wow, I've never heard it put like that, and I'm so excited to hear it put like that. I had a cousin who was, she actually died of AIDS because she was a prostitute, and she was a drug addict, and she, you know, caught AIDS, and but when she caught the AIDS, it took her quite a few years. I mean, to like develop full blown. Wait, is it full blown AIDS? I guess she had HIV, and so, and during those years, she started where, like, I actually lived on this street, and it was known for that's where the prostitutes would be. But it was a street in the city. I mean, she started a Mary Magdalene house on the street, on the same, you know, down there where they would hang out, and it was a beautiful, absolutely beautiful gesture, you know. And she really came from the heart and really wanted to help them after she had, you know, gone through what she had gone through, and that really makes me think about that, what she did, and how, you know, beautiful that really was to name it that. Now that you say that, now that you told me the story, Adriana, and yeah, and there's nothing new, nothing. There's, you know, all of creation's already been created. This is just a memory, a remembering. Yeah, and you
Yeah,
know what?
in fact, Jesus did have. I mean, Mary Magdalene was pregnant when Jesus died. Mary Magdalene. I mean, in several sources refers to this as a true, like investigations and things like that, points out to the south of France as the destination of Mary Magdalene being pregnant with Jesus. And in, and who, I mean, it is really amazing to hear this story about Jesus and Mary Magdalene being corrected in time. But if we go back to the words that the book states, it's just, it doesn't matter. What we are trying to do with all of our lives is finding balance between the masculine and the feminine. They both came each other into a moment where they could relate to each other because they were fully and completely understood as the child of God. I mean, each one of them didn't feel lackness inside of them. So when they found each other, they recognized it's themselves as being fully, completely, and holy. So of course they had to connect as a couple because it was a more powerful message being taught by these two opposites towards people than being a single person believing that he's holy, fully, and complete without experiencing love in the level of the form in a balanced way. That's why the disciples were so jealous about Mary Magdalene. And that's why they asked her, after Jesus died, the words of wisdom that Jesus told her that nobody else has heard her or heard before. And the words that Mary Magdalene gave them was, Lord, I don't remember, I cannot quote them correctly, but it was really like the mirror concept, like, Lord, I saw you in a vision, and then something like that. She was stating, like, you are me. She was stating like the same Ramdas thing that I always talk about, like, if I don't know who I am, I serve you. But if I do know who I am you. If you are fully holy and complete, the relationships that you will encounter in your life will be the most joyful experiences that you will have, even if they don't have wealth or a peaceful landscape. You will feel fully in love no matter what, if you are already fully complete within you. So the wisdom that she gave to them in a form of, I don't know, it's just like an analogy or a poem. It was like that. She was saying, you are me, I am you. Unless you can perceive the other partner that you have in your life as yourself, because you're fully holy and complete, you will not have a holy relationship. You cannot enter into any relationship if you feel lacking something. That was the message
But
of Mary Magdalene in some form.
I don't doubt Mary Magdalene, uh, you know, was a spiritually, at the level of Jesus. So that's not what but I feel like we don't need to justify that Jesus got married, because there's nothing wrong with it. I feel like in some ways
No, it
it
doesn't
became
matter.
demonized in, in this
It's
image.
just, it's not in the Bible. Like, why did they stop the story at that point if he went on living? It just seems like that seems weird to me. It makes sense that he would, like, if you got resurrected,
Did you guys ever like consider that maybe all of it's a story and was basically scribed
Sure,
by God?
could
So
be.
all these are stories so that we can have the wisdom of God.
Sure,
Yeah,
Even
but
of course.
my point here is that, relationships and being married and living like a normal human life, like, there's nothing wrong with that, and there's
Exactly,
nothing
exactly.
unspiritual about that. And I mean, Andy, are you saying you think that the fact that it's not in the Bible, what
oh,
would that indicate?
no, actually, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying
That
I'm
Me,
was
me
I'm
me.
neither.
thinking
Me
that
Lee
neither.
Lee said it.
story. I'm oh yeah, I was thinking possibly every story in the Bible is just a story so that we can understand how to make this whole world work. Like all the scriptures, all of the ancient scriptures were written by man, and um, so and they all have a father and son. Weird thing, they They all have a father and son. All of the deities have, you know what I mean? There's like a whole, it seems to me that it's that they're all stories and teachings, and to separate, but they're also all have the wisdom, all have the wisdom of God and in them. I'm not going to say that Jesus didn't walk. I don't really know, but I am saying I don't really know. Maybe it's a story.
Yeah, even if it is a story, you get to get the most out of it, because the message is just you need to find balance.
The message is that we are all exactly what you just said. We're all here experiencing the same thing. Even Jesus experienced the same things, um, more or less. I mean,
Yeah,
but
you
he
need to find
told us what
balance
we
in
can.
order to let the source do its job, because you don't know for sure what is your role in this world. It's not that you can't know it, it's just that you don't have access to the entire consciousness, greater
Yeah,
consciousness.
and we've
So
also.
you need to find balance in order to let the divinity go through you, because if you feel that you are only like these women with, because your body tells you that you're a woman and that you can bring life into this world, and you neglect the part of yourself that is masculine, then you will conceive yourself like this, I don't know, not strong person, and you can see that this is not true, because even women, physically we are really not that strong as men, but emotionally and in pain and sustaining pain, or perceiving pain, we are stronger than them. So there's always a way to reverse the thoughts. So if you don't think yourself as a woman that you are a perfect mix between men and female, or male and female, you will always have a difficult relationship with men. So you need to find balance in order for you to perceive God in everything and let God work through you, or the source work through you, and be ease with your situation in life, because life is dualistic. So you need to find a balance in order for you to be okay, even if you are in the highest of the achievements or in the lowest of your failures.
Life
That's
is actually not dualistic, but we think it
exactly.
is, right? Or not. I don't even want to use
Exact.
the word. I can't use the word think anymore, you guys. I have to start saying we remember that someone said it was, and we believed it. Because honestly, I really subscribe to that idea that we aren't able to create anything that was already created. We're only able to remember, and then when something new comes to us, we then can remember something new and use
Exactly.
it.
In fact,
Yes.
we are perfect, holy, and complete. And what we are doing, that this is something that Bob said in another session, is that we are making progress. We don't need to search or pursue perfection, because we are really already perfect. We are just making progress on remembering that we are perfect, holy, and complete. We are not doing anything out of the creation of God, because God's creation is already perfect, holy, and complete. We are just remembering. That's the progress you need to make in life, with all the hurdles and with all the success that you have. That's what you're doing. You are remembering. That's the progress you made in life.
Yeah, because you know what? Because once you understand that you don't have the capacity to think, but you can only remember, it actually liberates you from having to be having so much pressure and so much, and then you can actually see that, you're just like whatever, like what you're saying is, I've got a memory of something, so now I'm sharing it. Someone else is having memories as I'm speaking. It's their
Exactly.
perception, but their perception coming from their memories, and then they'll speak, and it just and then somebody says something that I didn't hear, so now all of a sudden I can see where that's a
That's
potential
enlightenment.
possibility. So yeah, and that's how
What
we
is
actually.
this? What is this idea of remembering? Can you? Where does that? Where did you get that
the
from?
word the word remembering can be seen as well, like remember, like reattach concepts. So what Andy is saying is that we don't have a thought process that can be really original and unique ideas because it all has been done by God and it all has been solved already. All the problems have been solved. So what Andy is stating is that as we are already perfect, holy, and complete, the progress that we made in life is not creating something new, is remembering, is like having all the knowledge from God
What about
reconstructed in some
what about the
form.
thought of error?
The
It's a
thought of the
mistake.
error.
So
Is it a
we
remembered mistake?
yeah, let's go way back to the very beginning of this. It all started when we had an idea that we took seriously and we forgot to laugh. The idea was we thought, what would it be like to be separate from God?
Mm-hmm.
What would it be like? What would it be like to experience that?
So if you
And
have a false idea and you laugh, then
yes,
it cancels it out?
it sure helps. If you've got a fear, it's something that's not real. If you laugh at something that's supposed to be scary, it makes it not scary. If you go through a horror house with a bright flashlight and you can see that some guy's just, crouching in the corner waiting to go boo, it's not scary.
So
It's not.
if thought creates reality, okay,
Yes.
let's say thought
Yeah.
creates
It
reality,
does. Yeah.
it does. Then, but if I have a thought that's a mistake thought, right?
Yeah.
An error thought. If I laugh, it cancels it out.
If you laugh, it gets rid of the fear, and that allows you to have the presence of mind to undo the knot. It's like doing a puzzle in the dark or trying to untangle a knot in the dark. It's
Mm-hmm.
all much easier in the light. And the older I get, the more light I need. And so right now I'm standing in the bright sunshine because it's only the solution. We have the illusion of problems. Today is about remembering that it's just an illusion of problems. We
It's
are
all
all
solved.
one under God, in God, with part of God, and we all have access to the Akashic record of all the knowledge there is.
But the
Everything that ever
knot,
happened. We
how
have access
how
to
is
that.
how
I
is the
can't. Go
how
ahead.
is the knot undone?
Well, it's
When you
just a knot.
realize that there's no not, when
How,
you
how
When you
complicated
laugh,
realize
of a knot do you want to imagine? I prefer to imagine nice, simple, knot with one little twist in it, and I'm going to let it come undone. I can tell you that if you'd like, I can go into detail like I did earlier. There's lots of knotty knots in my life, but they all have one problem and one solution. It's the separation, and it's approaching something not from the perspective of love.
so
If I
laughing.
come at it from the perspective of love,
let,
every
let,
knot
let
is
her
easily
ask the
undone.
question, honey. Let her
Sure.
ask the question.
No, I mean I just so laughing, but I'm curious because some other people are flashing their mics, so maybe someone else has something to say on this.
No,
Oh,
we're laughing because it's not true. It's the reason for laughing is because of, it's the only thing that exists is love, right?
We've got to
So
laugh.
just like, right.
Laughter
So
Laughter
it's
brings
like,
back
okay, so
love.
when you realize
Yeah.
you find yourself in this, like you found yourself like remembering, that none of this, like all
Oh,
of this fear and the situations, that we're going through that may be horrifying or whatever isn't real, right? So when you realize it isn't real, it isn't a horror story anymore, and you just laugh. It's
So
like,
you're
wow, it's
remembering
not
the
the
true
actual laugh.
thoughts. Yeah, you're remembering the true thoughts. And
Hmm.
are you then falsely thinking the false thoughts?
you're getting tangled up in your knot.
Yeah.
Here, I'll make it easy because I had 3
Go
bad
ahead, love.
days last week and I had 2 good days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, horrible. Tuesday, Thursday, spectacular. It gave me whiplash. It was like that. But what it showed me is if I wanted to, I could have stayed in peace of mind the whole time, or I could have enjoyed the roller coaster because I love roller coasters. But I went along for the ride emotionally when I didn't have to because I got caught up in looking at the problem rather than realizing God had already taken care of it all.
But that's not what I'm asking.
well, can I
I'm
actually, Tamara? I think I
yeah,
know. I think I
yeah.
know what you're asking. Um, Nothing is a mistake and nothing is wrong, actually. Until it's
Exactly.
when we understand something that it's like, oh wait, you just expanded your mind and understand something greater. It's not necessarily a mistake. It's just that you didn't understand more
It's
of
just that you
something.
had resistance to it. So
Yeah, it could
whenever
be
you,
like
yeah,
it could be like,
whenever we feel in conflict or in fear, is because we are having resistance to some form of knowledge that comes in our way, that is showing a part of us that we don't want to acknowledge. So you get resistant to the learning, so the lesson gets like stronger, and that's why it is scary. It's like when you dream, you can
let's
have
make sure
fun.
she's asked, that we know the question she asked.
So
Is that
Ah,
so
okay.
the laughing, I'm really on the laughing here. So the laughing is that because of the recognition of that it's not real, of the unreality of the thought kind
Yeah,
of
is
thing.
that,
So
yeah, something like
so
Yeah,
that.
thought,
yeah. It's like the
yeah.
Wizard of Oz situation.
Exactly.
It's
Laughing
like the
turns on the
Wizard of
light.
Oz, right?
Laughing,
Like,
laughing
like you
turns
thought.
that light on.
Wait, okay.
Yeah, it's like the Wizard of Oz, like they thought that it was this big, powerful being that was controlling everything. But then when they went, right, and they pulled back the curtains and they saw this little being, it's laughable. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, like with this world that we're living in. We can get caught up, into like all the problems, and we think we have so many problems. But then, you find out, right? Like with this lesson today, that there's only one problem, you know? It's like the problem isn't that, oh, okay, I need a maid. Oh my God, I need a better house. I need to get a better job. The problem is actually that we found ourselves, not remembering who we are, and that's laughable. So it's not the actual laugh that's going to break you know, that's going to bring you back to reality. The laugh is a reaction to the
Right.
fact that you were in error.
Okay, so
It's like,
you
oh my
have
God, I made a mistake.
the error thought, recognize that it's laughable and laugh. So but
Well,
the
no,
error
the
the
laugh is that actual reaction. It's not like the laugh it has any power. Is
yeah,
that what you're saying?
it's the
Yeah, the laugh isn't
recognition,
the magic that's going to break it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
the recognition that it's laughable. But then so Andy was saying that there's no thinking, there's only remembering. Is the error thought a remembering, or is the error thought a thinking?
Yes, it's a
Yes.
memory.
It's a
It's a
It's a memory
memory.
of
I'm
something
sorry, I
that you.
disagree. I think that the error is what happens in the reality of the moment, and then we mistakenly think there's an error. There's never been
No,
an
yeah,
error.
honey, but it's that, I mean, whenever you are in a conflict, it's because you are bringing the past into your present moment. So you are not
No,
remembering who you
you can
are.
be in conflict because you're bringing the future into the present
Of
moment. You can
course,
be in
and that's
conflict
not the
because you're in
reality.
judgment. You're in
Yeah,
conflict because your
yeah.
ego's
But
judgment.
Actually,
that
there's no past.
exactly, but
Actually,
that
there's
is
no past
exactly
or
not
present
remembering.
or a
Yeah.
future. I mean, there's
However
actually no
you want
past.
to state it, it still boils down to one problem, one solution.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we are not
today's
in disagreement with that.
right.
It's just that what Tamara is trying to figure here is like the laugh will not magically make disappear the problem, but
Yep.
it will ease your heart in the point where you can see the conflict and
Honey,
enable
we're
your
all
mind.
in fervent agreement here
I
together.
Yeah.
get
I am
that. I
only
get
agreeing
that.
with you. We're
I'm
all saying the same thing. We're all
I'm
together, I think.
wondering I'm wondering about the thinking versus the remembering actually. The laughing was just like a little side stop along the way. I understand the laughing now. I'm curious about the thinking versus remembering.
Well,
I get it that we're remembering our oneness, that the atonement, that we're remembering that it's an error and that we are actually one. I get that. I'm just curious about where, if
Well,
there's no thinking.
Well, the thinking doesn't come from you; it comes from the source. You are remembering, and by
you
remembering,
guys,
you are allowing the source to bring ideas into your brain to find solutions.
What
So
about
the
sorry,
all
but
the
we're here
what
to be happy. She's right on point. Tamara's right on point. It's got our whole When a comic makes us laugh, it's because he leads us down a path and then takes a turn we don't expect. And that we find funny. We're finding it funny that we forgot to remember. Then we remember it and we're like, oh, silly us.
She's
We
trying
can
to
take
find
it.
the difference between thinking and remembering the
I
concepts.
understand that, Adrian.
Well, I'm
That's what
just
I'm saying.
wondering about the contents of my subconscious mind, to be honest with you, because a lot of that looks like thinking, not remembering. And
No,
I'm,
the
yeah,
subconscious
no,
mind is all a memory.
it's
Also,
all a memory.
you know what? We're dividing the mind, but it's really not divided. There's not even a subconscious. Every
Yep.
time we
It's all
talk,
one.
yeah, it's all one. Every time we talk, we think that we're doing this from the subconscious, like things are coming up, or from the conscious, because we think we're thinking about it. Okay, we remember that we're coming up with the something. Okay, something that you're not thinking in this moment. We're going to call it the subconscious, just for a better understanding. However, that's not the subconscious. It's going to be whenever I say something that reminds you of something, you could pull it right up, right? So that's not the subconscious. It's exactly what we're doing at all times. Some of it seems autopilot, yes, or all of it might be autopilot. That's the point. Every time somebody says something or something reminds you, look at a chair and you remember that that's used to sit on, then it's just a memory and a recollection. It's actually a little bit scary when you first hear that. I got scared, and because I just heard about that recently myself, and I got scared for a second because I was like, "Really? I don't think I'm just like a robot."
So
But
if stuff comes into my mind like, oh, I should do this now, that's a memory.
yeah, because you actually had synapses happen in your mind. You had all these like nerves like connecting, and that's what reminded you to that you have to do something, or that you desire to do something.
So it's a memory of a, like, it's a, like, there's a delay. Is that it? Is that why it's a memory?
Maybe I could remap what I said before. Grace,
Okay.
she took the video of me. She took the video and didn't have a choice. She came over and helped me and she didn't have a choice. I did what I did without a choice. And we did play our parts so that we could learn the lesson here. And we're in a safe place to learn any kind of lesson. That's this safe world. We're using time to learn the lessons that we need to learn to get back to oneness.
Okay, I'm going to spend some time with this. There's also like in Hindu philosophy, this idea of memory as being one of the sort, it's nyaya, like it's logic, this sources of knowledge, the five sources of knowledge. Anyways,
Yeah,
memory, one of them. I'm not that well versed in it, but I have a book. I'm gonna spend some time with this because it seems like a logic question to me. I'm just curious about the this. It's striking me as memory, and that, okay, and then the oh,
But
interesting.
how does that make you feel? I mean, I'm really curious about how do you feel with the concept of remembering instead of thinking? Is it something that makes you feel like non,
Curious.
not
I'm just curious. No, it's not about it's not so much, it doesn't, maybe it is, but it doesn't so much feel so personal as far as it just feels um like a logic, like what? Like a problem to solve for me in my mind. It's not about my personal relationship with the subconscious mind. But I will say one thing, that the word in like uh, satipatthana. Okay, so Buddhism has this insight mindfulness meditation, and the word sati is Pali, and it's from the Sanskrit smriti, and smriti is to remember. So, so that insight awareness meditation is somehow a recollection, and anusmriti is a word that's frequently used um, for awareness, or for like awareness meditation, like kind of like paying attention kind of meditation, and that's also uh, a word for recollection. So,
exactly.
yeah, go ahead, Andy.
No, you got it. You really got it. It's just that yeah, you got it. It's really what it is. And because, like, if you're gonna, like, even hypnosis happens, we say it happens on a subconscious level, but what it is we're super relaxed. So we're super suggestive because things come easy into your mind and go out easy. So it's more of like, it's more of a passive, we're in a passive state where we can make suggestions to our memory to become a pattern so that the synapses then they create a pattern from those like if we're doing a hypnosis, we're suggesting um, that we don't need we're free of all addiction, or I'm just giving you an example, and we're giving all these suggestive ideas to ourselves at this time, and we've already heard these things, we already know these things, right? And we're basically creating a new synapses like pattern in our brain. So then when we go to, we're saying we don't smoke, well, like we may even decide to refuse to. Some people get that right away the first time, they don't want to smoke ever again. Some people have to do it 2-3 times, some people have to do it up to 12 times. It just depends, but it's just creating a new synapses that if you're actually passive enough, and that means relaxed enough, like in that state of real meditation type thing, we'll call it meditation, but in a really peaceful state and passive state, then it depends how passive you are, how much you're not rejecting whatever you're trying to do, then you're going to get it right away, and it already created an experience, and then that's forefront, it becomes forefront, and then when you're not in your passive state, it's still there. It's an automatic now. You know what I mean? It's small memory.
Yeah. It's striking me that what you're saying is that there's always a bit of a delay in some sense. Like physical reality is behind in time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Adriana? Is that what you would say?
Yeah, in fact, Lee was mentioning in a sessions ago that he found research that states that the eyes gather the images, and the process of the images had a little bit of delay, right, honey?
That's right. It's a part of a little bit of a loop. It's kind of like, instead of watching a single image for a single instant, we're really watching kind of a 10-second loop. You know how your iPhone, you take a picture, it's a live picture, and you can kind of see what the action is? That, as a cumulative effect, creates our reality really in the moment. And our moment is not just an instant. Our moment stretches a little bit into the past and a little bit into the future. And it helps our brains level out reality so that we're not too distracted by the amazing amount of stuff that's around us. And the rest is about expanding ourselves so that we can get back to that almost naive view of the world, that innocent view of the world, where, you know how often babies giggle, right? Everything's entertaining because there's so much in the world. And in our minds, we grow so that we can interact with the world efficiently, and we get habits, and all of these things engender different memories and thoughts and predictions and expectations. And sometimes those expectations are met, and sometimes they aren't. And sometimes we laugh, and sometimes we don't. But we're here to play, and it's all safe today. And we come back to remembering our thought of the day.
Yeah,
Let me recognize all my problems have been solved. The problem has been solved. It's behind us. Look back behind you and realize you've made it over the finish line, and you can relax today. It is a holiday in Mexico. I don't know if you know this, but we could all pretend we're in Mexico, take the day off,
Come,
relax.
everybody, you're welcome to my
Right?
house.
There's a
They
swimming
have a
pool down
pool.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just imagine you're down the Yucatan Peninsula. It's a beautiful, like 80-degree day, and we're going to hang out at the beach. Vera, Adriana's daughter, is off on the boat with her dad, having a great time. So, at the house to ourselves, we can party, everybody. And tomorrow I'll be here to read 81. We'll start the review sessions on this last 20 days. So, we really have accomplished something here. You guys have been with me on this. I really appreciate it. I'll be here tomorrow to keep going. I gotta go take a drug test and prove that I don't take any drugs, which is a piece of cake because I don't. So I'm gonna go pee in a cup, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Tamara, because you really gave us a lot of enjoyment with this conversation. I love this subject, and I love what you bring on the table. And I'm thrilled to have you all here, and Andy, of course, and